The following is a paid program, and the views expressed do not necessarily represent the opinions of the management of this station or Pamel Broadcasting. And the views and opinions expressed by the hosts, guests, and callers of this program are solely their own. They do not represent or reflect the views, policies, or official position of ACA, its affiliates, or its staff. ACA does not endorse any statements made during this broadcast. This is 1 in 31 Autism Today, a presentation from Anderson Center for Autism. 1 in 31 Autism Today is a weekly show devoted to autism spectrum disorder.
Good morning and welcome to 1 in 31 Autism Today, podcast brought to you by Anderson Foundation for Autism. I'm your host, Elizabeth Rosenberger, Chief Development Officer at Anderson Center for Autism, and I'm talking today for the very first time with a parent from our Anderson Early Learning Academy. And so welcome, Liz Rosenberger. It's nice to have you on the show.
Hi, it's nice to have you too.
I am thrilled to be talking to you. You are the parent of one of our very youngest students at Anderson. And since I haven't had the pleasure of speaking to somebody from the Early Learning Academy before, but I am a former teacher, I'm going to just soak up all of what you're talking about when it comes to your son being really one of the little guys in our program and what your experience has been raising him so far and coming into the Anderson community through the AELA. So without further ado, I'd love to just ask you to tell us a little bit about yourself and your background, whatever you'd like to share.
Yeah, sure. So I am a mother of two 4-year-old twins. Actually,
Wow.
My son is currently at Anderson AELA, the Early Anderson Learning Center. So he is with the most wonderful teachers. We'll get into that. But I also have a daughter who is his twin. They are currently 4.5, getting ready for kindergarten. So I am a mom. I'm also a school counselor in an elementary school in upstate New York. So in the local capital region near the Latham Center. So I am all things autism. So I work with autistic students as well, myself, and kids with ADHD. I do counseling for IEPs myself. So I do this all day, every day. So a lot of experience myself outside of the classroom with my son, but also professionally. So that's pretty much the gist of me because, momming to a 4-year-old, to two 4-year-olds actually is, it's a lot of work. And I'm sure everyone that's going to be listening to this can feel that.
I thank you for sharing that. I'm curious, was that the field you were in professionally before you had your son and daughter, and then along comes Colton, and I find it very intriguing sometimes that sometimes it really feels like there's a connection that was meant to be in some ways.
It's funny that you say that because, yes, I was in the field already. I actually was not working with students directly the way that I am now. I was a K through 12 counselor elsewhere, more a high school counselor, like what others would see as a guidance counselor, doing more like high school, college career planning. I worked with kids on the spectrum before, but not directly related the way that I am now. But yes, it's almost like he was put in my lap. So it's kind of ironic how things like that happen. But so to speak, yes, he was given to me in a way that just so happened to be that I worked in the field and he was handed to me on my lap, and just so happened to be a kid on the spectrum that, I can manage because I have experience working in the field, but that's not like that for everybody. I'm just so lucky to have that experience.
I think the reason I brought it up is because I also think you're choosing, like, for instance, today, you're choosing to do something that you don't have to do, which is hopefully going to help some other families who may not have that professional experience and that professional training by way of sharing your experience and your story. And I just am a believer in sort of the way the world works. Sometimes things really happen that are impactful, whether you believe that what was, meant to be, or just a cool part of the way life sometimes works out. Not to take away from the challenges that are related, obviously, to raising children in general, and also, children who are neurodivergent and on the spectrum. So I just wanted to I was curious if how much of your professional training and experience comes into play at home, because there's also validity to the fact that maybe it doesn't come into play that often. Maybe you need to separate that professional from being your kids' moms. I would think that that's also sort of for your sake and for the family's sake, that might be very important. So can you talk about any of that? Because there's so much interplay between personal and professional for so many.
Absolutely. And my husband would probably want to chime in on something like this too, because I sometimes struggle with this big time, because I want to be a counselor at home, and I want to put myself in that work position at home with my son, but there's a lot of times where I have to stop myself and just be mom, and just be that loving person to him and be like everybody else is with their kids. And I think it's wonderful that I have that experience professionally with these kids, and I understand, like, I know what to do, but I also don't. So just like everybody else with their kids, whether typical, neurodivergent, it doesn't matter what they are. It doesn't matter how their brain is.
I mean, honestly, just
there is no hand back.
When you said, I just don't always know, I think that that's a great lesson for everybody, that it's important to, if you're in a place where you feel comfortable saying, I don't always know what to do. And it's also okay to probably, reinforce for families, especially, well, in this case, just talking to you, families of younger children, maybe children who were diagnosed within the last couple of years, who haven't, had 10, 15, 20 more years to sort of adjust and understand who their child is, to feel the emotions. I mean, it's an emotional roller coaster as it is. And
we can tell you. Yeah. And I could tell you that the diagnosis process for our son especially was extremely excruciatingly hard for especially me, because even working with kids that are on the spectrum, and I see it all day long, I still didn't know if my son was on the spectrum. I had no clue. I really struggled, even though he is, sometimes very openly obvious. Then there's days where it's not so obvious, but then there's days that it's painstakingly obvious. It doesn't matter if I work in the field or not. I think I'm still a mom, and, you just don't know. And I think we're all just human. And I think it doesn't matter what you do, who you are. You just are. And being a mom, you get blinded by some things, and that's okay. That's just what it comes down to. It's okay to be that way. And I think every human being needs to hear that, is that no matter what, they're all little, they're all going to do these things, and it's going to be difficult as parents, and you get through it. And I think that leads to our discussion about Anderson. I mean, it's been incredible.
Say that because we're going to have to take a quick break in a couple minutes. So let's, if you don't mind, I've just one more curiosity, and this is more about just you as your family dynamic and the fact that you have twins. Tell me about your son and daughter's relationship with each other. Twins are so interesting. Just overall, there's so many things that we don't know and so many things that we are learning. But as a mom, I'm not a mom of twins, but as you being a mom of twins, what's their relationship like?
I can sum it up very quickly. They're best friends. They're absolutely wonderful together. Spectrum or not, it doesn't matter. It's almost like the spectrum part of my son disappears when it comes to his sister. The social skills are there. They're there. So another thing that made it really hard for us to figure out. That's how I would sum it up, is because of their bond being so special. It makes it really difficult for us to see some of those social struggles in him, especially because their relationship is so great.
And when they're, kids are young, they're interacting mostly at home with family. And, but I think I like this part of our conversation a lot, because I always think about the people listening who may not reach out, who may not have a big circle of support, or people, that they feel might understand where they're coming from or what their experience has been. So I think it's important when you're willing to talk about these things where like, look, I didn't know. And even going through the process, it still didn't exactly ring true. I mean, I love to bust myths if we can about like, oh yeah, it was super obvious and we knew right away and it was easy. And then we moved on to like obtaining services, which we all know it doesn't work like that, unfortunately. There's often delays and waits and there's, adjustment for everybody. So I really do appreciate your openness to talking about it. I think we need, as many families as possible talking out loud to help other families feeling maybe a little lost or a little isolated right now. We're going to take a short break, but when we come back, then I promise you, Liz, we will dive into Anderson Early Learning Academy and how you found us and the experiences so far, both for Colton as a student and also for you and your whole family as a member of the community. This is 1 in 31 Autism Today, and we will be right back after this break.
Stand Up to Cancer asked leading cancer researchers to speak about why they do their work.
2 words come to mind for me. One is responsibility, the other is purpose.
It's just so inspiring to do research that impacts human lives.
Stand Up to Cancer has been a critical partner in advancing research for cancer.
Cancer research saves lives.
So please help us fight in this battle against cancer.
Be a part of the team that ends cancer at standuptocancer.org.
What are you doing out there?
Come on!
I saw you at the game the other night. Yeah, you. Up there getting mad, acting like we're all out there making $1 million a game. Well, let me be real with you. This isn't the pros. It's school sports, and it's a game, our game. So please, let us play.
School sports fans, remember, when you cheer for your team, make noise for the right reasons. This message presented by the NFHS and the NIAAA.
And all student athletes in New York.
And now, 1 in 31 Autism Today continues on 100.7 WHUD. This is a weekly community affairs presentation from the Anderson Center for Autism.
Welcome back to 1 in 31 Autism Today. This is Eliza Bozensky, Chief Development Officer for Anderson Center for Autism. And on behalf of Anderson Foundation for Autism, we are bringing you today's podcast, where I'm talking with Liz Rosenberger, who is the parent of a student at Anderson's Early Learning Academy, one of our locations, which is located in Latham, New York, in the capital region. And Liz, we've had a great conversation so far. Again, I want to thank you for telling your story and sharing your experience raising Colton and his twin sister, and going through, difficulty of getting a diagnosis and recognizing kind of, is it, isn't it? What am I noticing? What am I not noticing? And adjusting to that. But eventually you did get the diagnosis. And then at what point did you start looking for an early learning or preschool program for Colton?
So we actually, we got it around 2 years old. So we started pretty early. We couldn't get a program right away because he didn't qualify for certain programs, just because at the beginning he was only qualifying for speech. So we started out with the speech route, and then later on he started qualifying for programming because we started noticing other problems and struggles going on. And then once he qualified for a programming, we actually put him in a preschool beforehand. And that situation did not actually work out because he was in an integrated setting and he needed a more specialized, and we needed more secluded. And he actually, it's funny because he was not doing very well at his last preschool. And my husband and I kind of looked at each other. We were just like, you know what? Let's look for something that's going to be actually more specialized in the autism, sector. Let's go straight for it, because I think we were avoiding the fact that he really needed that specialized. And then once I kind of got the idea of Anderson, because it came to mind, because I actually work in a building with the director's wife, ironically. So she kind of caught my ear and said, "Hey, listen, my husband's, running this building." And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go for it. I heard about it. And so I just went straight for it and I contacted him. when she said, just do it. They're having such great, turnouts with kids and stuff. And I, in my building, I've been taking on a couple of the kids into the kindergarten programs here, and I'm seeing how wonderful they're doing coming into our 15 one-rooms. And I'm just, blown away by, how they're doing. And I'm just like, why not? So I reached out and I had a wonderful conversation with the director at the building. And
we're talking about
Dan. Yeah, I'm going to go right for it. I was talking to Dan.
I'm going to shout out Dan. Great.
Yeah, Dan and I had a conversation.
Wonderful. Great.
Yeah, Dan and I had a wonderful conversation. He took the time out with me and it was fantastic. He did a really wonderful job by easing my mind and telling me, let's talk about it. Let's talk about where he is at. And he let me know that they had spots and that Colton would be a great fit. And I really thought that it would be something that would be a good match for my son. And I really wasn't afraid of the word autism anymore. And after that conversation, I just said to my husband, let's do it. And my husband said, let's go check it out. After that, it was just kind of a win and we went straight to it. So we registered him and that was it. I didn't really want to question anywhere else. It just was one of those things that my gut said, let's go. And it just,
so much about that story. First of all, you and your husband checking in with each other and like being on the same page, which I think is hard to do when there's a lot going on in any circumstance, with any decision, large decision. But I love that you did that together. But also, and I know Dan, and so I can just sort of imagine the conversation. One of the things that I really value about Anderson overall is that I think, the integrity of the team members and the fact that what you witnessed, what you probably got, at least partially from that initial conversation, was the sense of pride that Dan has in the work that goes on in that building and the people that he works with and his colleagues and the people who run the classrooms and support the kids. When you get him talking about, or on a tour, he really, you could just see it oozing out of him that he's happy with what he sees and he holds people to a high standard, but he truly is all about that program and successful outcomes for the kids and the families. So I'm so glad that was your entree into it, was talking directly to him. That's great. What has Colton's experience been like so far since he started?
Oh my goodness, I can't even put it into words because it's been so awesome. My son is a different child, to say the least, since September. It's just all around been incredible to watch. My son's also a praxic, so he has some language issues. He was talking a little bit when he first started, but an unbelievable amount of change. He's talking incredibly way more. It's hard for me to vocalize it because he just is such a different kid. He's always been a social kid, but they love him there. And that's something that I just want to really express a lot, is that they really love him there and they let us know that. At the open house, they knew who we were without even seeing us with our child. Colton was not with us. They knew who we were, which was shocking to us. And they let us know just how much they loved him. And his experience just seems positive. Day 3, I got his teacher, Jeanette, called me and just said, the first day I met him, I thought he was going to be tough. And she said, I think I cracked him by day 3. And she says, literally in messages weekly, he's doing wonderful. And she doesn't let me know when things are going, when he's struggling, unless he's really struggling, which is, as a mom, is fantastic because I don't want to hear about every bad move or every horrible thing that's going on. And she works with us as a team, which is fantastic. My husband and I don't worry, which is probably the best part about the whole experience, is that we don't worry about him. And I think that's the way I want to sum it up, is that our whole experience at Anderson has been worry-free, to say the least. Yeah.
I think that will mean a lot to the people who work with him and know you when they hear you say that. It really goes a long way. So I'm thrilled to hear that that's been your experience. I'm curious only because I've had the opportunity to hear some presentations from some AELA staff who have done various presentations about how they collect data and how they run their classrooms and organize their classrooms and how they share information with families. And a lot of it is custom in terms of what the family wants, and how often they want to be receive communication. But do you have thoughts just about all the different things that they're tracking in terms of Colton's his progress, his areas of challenge, goals and things, and what it takes when you're there either picking up or when you talk to them about, what are your thoughts about how much information is really being looked at, but then presented at a preschool level where it's got to all be engaging and mostly really fun and very play focused. Does that strike you in any particular way as unique, maybe from other places you've seen?
I think the way that they're doing it is kind of at an almost like a public school elementary level, like the way that we collect data. I mean, if I speak from my professional level, like what I do myself here in my job, I see it very similarly, like the way I do things myself, but they are as professional as it gets. I mean, I'm getting data. If I need it, I ask for it, they'll give it. But I mean, I'm getting reports weekly from speech. So I know exactly how he's doing, even if it's just if it's excellent, good, not poor. I mean, I'm knowing exactly where he's at, what he's doing. I mean, I couldn't ask for anything more. And I think it's so simple.
I'm just curious, does that help you in terms of reinforcing any of that when he's home, when it's a weekend
Absolutely.
or school break or something?
Yeah, for sure. When we get our reports back from speech especially, they give newsletters as well, what to work on. But when I get the reports every week that tells me, yes, he did excellent, and they worked on articulation, and they worked on Valentine's Day words or so on and so forth, whatever they're working on, I know that they can, I should be I can be working on those words, especially with him, or I can go on to his AAC device and see what they did back in the history or something along those lines. We can, reinforce whatever they're doing in school. Of course, as parents, we're busy, we're doing other things, but, taking into consideration what they're doing in school, we can always make sure that we're following along and working as a team with the team at school as well. But of course, that's, we're, like I said, we're busy, we're doing other things. It's not always going to work out the same way as we want it to. But taking into consideration the fact that, being conscious of, we can do those things. But just seeing the change in the kids alone, when they come home, this is another thing to bring up. Seeing how much he's working at school and he comes home and he collapses. I say this to my parents that I work with. After school collapse is a good thing. And I see my son collapse at home after school. And sometimes I'm like, oh, yay. I'm happy he's upset because that means that he's working really hard at school and I want him to give me a hard time because then I know that he worked really hard with them. And that's how I know he's growing. So if he wasn't having a hard time with me, granted, I know how to manage him. So it's it's a win-win for me, I think. If he's giving me a hard time, I think it's a good thing.
I think that's a really valid point, and exhaustion is real. Whether it's mental exhaustion or physical exhaustion or both. And so I appreciate you sharing that. We only have about 10 seconds left, 15 seconds left. Just giving you an opportunity, any message really quick that you just would love for the team that supports Colton at the AELA. What would you like them to know?
Oh, we are going to miss you when he is gone. But just thank you. My husband and I, honestly, we can't say anything but wonderful things. And anyone that gets you in the future, now in the future, is so lucky to have you. And our Colton loves you. He absolutely adores you. We can tell. And we adore you. We are so, so happy to have you.
Well, it's been a pleasure having you on the podcast. Thank you, Liz, for sharing your experiences and your story. And best of luck. I know you are going to be moving on as Fulton gets older, but it really is great to talk to you. And thank you again for being the first AELA guest on the podcast. I hope to speak to more families moving forward, but you've been wonderful. And I wish you all the best in the future for you and your whole family.
Thank you.
This is 1 in 31 Autism Today, and that's our show. Thank you so so much for listening. I'm your host, Eliza Bozensky from Anderson Center for Autism, and on behalf of Anderson Foundation for Autism, just want to remind you, Anderson cares.
You've been listening to 1 in 31, Autism Today, a weekly presentation from Anderson Center for Autism. Join them for another edition of the show next weekend.